Thank you so much for joining us on the Dwelling Show. I'm your host, Ola Dantes. I've got the incredible Raphael with us today, Raphael Vargas. How are you doing today, Raphael?
I'm amazing, sir. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Obviously, you're doing a lot of amazing work. I've seen some of your videos. You're doing a great job. I'm pretty certain you can do a way better job in telling our Dwell listeners just a little bit more about yourself and just kind of what have you been up to lately?
Yeah, long story short, my name is Raphael Vargas. I run a national real estate wholesaling company. I started about 6.5 years ago, scaled it to now a multi-million-dollar operation, which has led me to invest in things like single-family assets, commercial assets. I own office buildings, single-family buildings, things like that. I have a portfolio of close to around $10 million worth of real estate assets. Our wholesaling company is doing roughly about $4 to $5 million in annual revenue in assignment fees, which we want to scale up to, $30 to $50 million. But the success that's brought me has now been able to have me in opportunities to now educate people and teach people how to scale their real estate investing in wholesaling companies the way that we've done. And if a knucklehead like me at 27 can do it, I can teach anybody to do it. I don't have, I barely graduated high school. I don't have any college education. So if somebody like me can do it at the age of 27, I really feel like anybody can do it. And I would say my main foundation is real estate wholesaling because it produces so much cash that you can then use to invest in whatever you want in real estate, commercial buildings, single family buildings. I'm going into self-storage development opportunities, buying self-storage facilities. I'm investing in multiple different companies. So it's just a great foundation to your real estate entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much for that introduction. So let's kind of dig in a little bit deeper. So first and foremost, why real estate? Why did you get into the game in the first place? Tell us your story of how you got started.
Yeah, that's a great story. And everyone always has their stories, but I think everyone's real reason is the same. It's financial freedom, right? Everyone wants to find financial freedom. And for me, it was, watching my mother and brother, my brother's mentally disabled, my mother working 2 jobs, trying to support me and my brother, who my father wasn't around to financially support us, at that time. I had to be the man and say, hey, how am I going to put my family on my back and support my family? And so because of that, that is the reason why I got into real estate. And so I said, hey, real estate is the best opportunity to go into to create a, multi-million-dollar type of organization where I can reach financial freedom and really help my mother out, help my brother out. So that was the first step. And then, now I've retired my mother. I take care of my brother, and so that was the first step. And now it's more about making an impact in my community, making an impact in the world. And so why real estate now is that you can amass the wealth that you want. Some of my mentors are billionaires, in real estate, commercial assets, getting $10 million net worth in real estate really isn't that hard if you have the right focus. And so, that's kind of where, the reason why I got into it initially was about helping my family out, but now it's about making a big impact, giving millions, creating leaders, and dominating markets throughout the nation. That's the reason why I'm in real estate.
Fantastic. So if somebody's listening to us now and they're thinking, wow, this Raphael guy is like on point, like it seems like he's so out there, so big. I don't think I can get to that point. I'm just a little guy, somewhere in America. I don't have any money. I can't get started in real estate. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
What do you say to that person? And maybe you can perhaps use the story of how you got started, how you did your first wholesale deal, or when was that, eureka moment for you? Like, wow, hold on a second. I just made my first 2,000 or my first 20,000. I can do this times 10 or times 100, whatever.
Yep. And what I would say to every single listener is everybody has a start. Everyone has a start, the path to get to a mile destination or 100 miles starts with the first step. And, I was just with Ray Lewis yesterday, man, and he was telling me an incredible story. He was telling me an incredible story about how he got into the NFL, right? And I'm with him. I'm interviewing him. I'm doing a podcast. We're also doing this amazing business opportunity that I can't speak much about. But, I was interviewing him, and, what he told me was, I asked him, I'm like, how did you get into the NFL? You're not the biggest dude. I met him. He's probably about, 5'11". He's not the biggest dude, and he's a linebacker, right? And so I'm with him. I'm like, how'd you get into the NFL? It started with him doing push-ups, 1 push-up, 20 push-ups, 50 push-ups, 100 push-ups. His reason of getting started was very similar to mine, a little bit different, but his reason of getting started, getting big, right? That was his first step, was getting big, was because, you know, he was getting, you know, he was seeing abuse from his family to his mother, so he needed to get big to protect his mother. And so that was his first step, was I'm going to get big, right? I'm going to get big physically to then, you know, take care of my mother and protect my mother. And so my first step was, you know, I have to make money to make sure my mother isn't working these two jobs, trying to go to school, and I'm watching her not sleep for days straight, trying to support me and go to college so that she can get better jobs, right? And so I'm watching her do this, and I'm seeing my brother neglected the same way. You know, it's all about taking the first step. And so for me, my first step was, you know, I'm going to make, you know, $100,000. Right. And to do that, you have to start with small goals, right? It's like, I'm going to make $100,000. And so that was my small goal, right? And so I quit my job. I went all the way in on real estate. And my first step was cold calling, right? I took a list of homeowners, and I was just calling them like crazy. I mean, from 7:30 in the morning till freaking 8 p.m., 9 p.m. at nighttime, sitting on a dialer, literally not even eating some days, where I'm just dialing and dialing and dialing away and calling homeowners up. So that was my first step. And it took me 9 months to get my first deal. But once I got my first deal, it was a $30,000 deal, secured that $30,000 deal. And then that was what made me realize, hey, this real estate wholesaling thing was true. And then I got my $30,000 deal. I invested that back into my marketing. I then started doing direct mail advertising, which then scaled my marketing. And then I made my first $100,000 in real estate. And then I was like, wow, if I can do this, you know, I can do this even deeper in my market. So I started scaling my marketing even more. And then my second year, I was doing $250,000 all by myself, $250,000 a year by myself, right? I had a couple cold callers, but it was pretty much me doing everything else. And then I started scaling a team, and I hired mentors, right? Very, very key. I started hiring mentors in the real estate wholesaling space, right? Guys that guided me into business and entrepreneurship, right? Guiding me into how to build an organization. So I was doing 250,000, and then immediately the next year, I was doing over $1 million in revenue in my wholesale company. And then I said, wow, how can I scale this to a multi-million-dollar degree, right? And then that's when I hired even more consultants, more mentors. And then that's when I started thinking about expansion, expanding into multiple different markets, expanding into, you know, not just in DC, but now Tampa, Charlotte, Atlanta. And that's how we are, you know, where we are today.
Wow. I mean, there's so many things in there. I don't even know how to break this down. So you mentioned a really good point. It's basically just starting with that first step, whatever that first thing is. Just get on with it. Just start. In your case, it was basically, you know, dialing and dialing. And obviously you got a lot of no's, right? Before you got your first yes, 9 months down the road. I think for those listening to us though, one important thing that they might be thinking is, wow, this guy just went on for 9 months, even though you could have quit in your 8th month and you never would have got that first $30,000 deal. What was your source of motivation, and how can other people, right, replicate that, you know, amount of grit, right? You know, if there's somebody listening to that and thinking, wow, how did he keep going? I mean, I would have quit in 4 months. Like, what do you say to that?
You know what? Really simple. It was my faith. It was God. And it was my family. I could not quit, you know, even though no one believed in me. No one believed in me, man. When I was starting up, you know, I was the underdog in a lot of ways, man. I was 21 years old. I had no education. I came straight from the street, so I talked slang and I talked, you know, I didn't have the sales experience. I wasn't refined, right, the way I am today, because I've read countless books now. And so, you know, what had me consistently have the grit to keep going was my faith. I felt like even though no one believed in me, I felt like God was in my corner. God was in my corner speaking to me and whispering in my ear, keep going. This is the direction for you. Keep heading in this direction. And so because I felt that faith that, you know what, if I'm gonna listen to God, I'm gonna have faith in God, that he's gonna protect me, he's gonna take care of me, and that I will retire my mother. And on top of that, I was so uncomfortable in my current situation. You know, I had no other option. There was no plan B. I had a plan A, and that was it. I was gonna die trying. I was gonna plan A or die trying, you know what I mean? And so pretty simple, man. I mean, that was what I did. And so that's what kept my grit.
I love that. And I just really, really appreciate the fact that you mentioned faith and and God. For me personally, that's a huge factor. And I love the fact that, folks can share that, because at the end of the day, we can give people the everyday tools and tactics, but also there's other things that might have worked for you or me that sometimes you might be a bit, like, I don't want to share that because, it's not a tactic, but sometimes it is part of the story and you have to include that. So I really appreciate you mentioning that. The other thing I want to touch on, real quickly, is quitting your job. Who does that? How did you manage to do that? I mean, there's obviously a big debate of, burn the boats and just go all in, or, keep your job. And, there's two debates to this. So how did you manage to, make that happen?
That's a great question. So I used to be a music producer. I had a lot of equipment in my house that I invested a lot of money into when I was first starting. I thought, music production was the way for me, was not the way for me. And so when I got into real estate, I quit my job. I had to sell a lot of my equipment. I had to, sell a lot of my equipment and rack up credit cards as well, just to pay for my marketing. I sold my shoes. I had like Jordans and, stuff like that. I sold my shoes. I sold my belts. I mean, I sold everything I could get my hands on. And I did little side jobs just to pay for my real estate investment business, which is my plan A, my main focus. And so because of that intensity of focus and that all in, burning all the boats, going all the way in, that is why I realized I reached that level of success,
Wow, I really I love everything you just said. Like, all the stuff that you had, you sold it, got rid of it. I mean, that's just kind of, out of place for some of folks in our generation, like getting rid of your Jordans and all your equipment. And, so I think that shows how passionate and how intense you were on really making your goals work for you. Before we kind of get to the quick round, I want to jump on what you talked about, like how you're, kind of earning this money from wholesaling and then kind of directing it towards kind of building long-lasting wealth in real estate through commercial assets and, like you said, self-storage development. So how are you kind of figuring out, how you want to reinvest these funds, right? How are you choosing your different asset classes? I mean, obviously for us, we're multifamily syndicators, that's kind of our straight laser focus, but how do you kind of make that decision as to, I want to invest in this deal or this asset class or not?
Self-storage facility is pretty simple. It's one of the strongest asset classes there are in commercial real estate, if not the strongest. During the recession, it had the lowest in 2008, 2009, lowest occupancy loss, right? So a lot of REITs started looking at this like, hey, this could be a very interesting asset class. It's a relatively new asset class. Even though it's new, it's still there's still a large opportunity in it, right? There's more self-storage facilities than there are fast food restaurants, right? And the majority of self-storage facilities, I think about 65-70% of them are still owned by mom and pop single operators that are mismanaging them, et cetera, et cetera. So there's 70% of the market of single operators that are for sure going to go to the market very soon because of personal reasons. And so I saw it as a big opportunity. Why? Because there's still a big opportunity, a big pool of assets to be bought at good prices. And then REITs are still aggressively pursuing them. And so soon in the next 5-10 years, REITs are going to be buying these asset classes at 4.5%, 5%, similar to multifamily. They're going to be extremely competitive, similar to multifamily, which multifamily is a great asset class. But the reason why self-storage, in my opinion, is better is because you don't have the same management, right? You don't have same management issues like multifamily does, toilets and, plumbing issues and, tenants are leaving in and out all the time and vacancy loss, all these things that, self-storage does not have. And so you can do the same thing, value add, do an expansion on the self-storage facility, add 40,000 square feet and, create a lot of equity and cash flow. Consistent cash flow, and it's almost market recession proof. Been proven only vacancy loss, occupancy loss of 5 to 7% during a recession. I mean, that's nothing compared to office or retail that lost 40%, 30%, 50%. You know what I mean? And so REITs are aggressively pursuing them, and I really feel like it's the Uber of the real estate asset class right now. So that's why we're pursuing it aggressively as well.
Awesome. So we're definitely dwelling into the quick rounds. These are going to be quick questions, quick answer. You ready, sir?
Yeah.
All right. First question. What makes you, Raphael, unique? What is that differentiating factor that separates you from the next guy or the next girl?
My spirit.
I like that. Short and sweet. Second question. What was the last book that you read? And what was the one thing that you picked out from that book?
Man, last book that I read, geez. I was reading God is My CEO. God is My CEO. Yeah. It's a book called God is My CEO. And it's a book talking about pretty much how you trust in God in your business decisions. And so what I've been learning a lot more is trusting God in my decision making and doing a lot more prayer in the decision making that I'm making in my own business. And it gives me a lot more wisdom, you know. Instead of my own internal wisdom, I get more wisdom externally from God, you know.
I like that. Never heard of that one. God is my CEO. That sounds interesting. Final question. You're obviously managing your companies, you're buying more assets, you're increasing your wholesaling activities across the nation. What do you do for fun?
I work out, man. I work out and I travel. Honestly, I work out. I love working out. That's a lot of fun for me. And I travel. I love traveling with, really close friends of mine. I don't have a huge group of friends, but I have a lot of very close knit of friends, close business partners, business relationships that I travel with. Right. You know, I was just in Medellin, Colombia. I was staying in Pablo Escobar's mansion in Medellin, Colombia. It was absolutely incredible. It was a condo, 2-level. Incredible mansion. You really saw how big of a visionary he was when I stayed in his mansion or condo. And so just incredible. So I love traveling with my family. I love spending time with my family. So that's what I do for fun, man.
Awesome. So if there's somebody listening and saying, wow, I really like this Raphael guy, I want to get to know him, or maybe I want to jump on one of his courses, what is the best place folks can connect with you, reach out to you, get to know you better?
Yeah, great question. You have to come to my event, April. Well, I have events consistently, but go to my next event. Go to realempire.com and you'll see all the information on my next event. You'll see all the information about me as a person, me as a wholesaler, the results I have, et cetera, et cetera. So you'll see exactly, what we do in a real estate wholesaling capacity and how you can learn and do the exact same thing. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, I do a lot of story posts, a lot of cool posts about me and my personal life. Follow me on Instagram at Real Raphael Vargas, REAL Raphael Vargas. And that's the best way to reach me.
Raphael, thank you. I really appreciate, your time today. Learned a ton myself. Hopefully we'll get you back on the show at some point in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it, Ola.